welcome to the Slow Ready Podcast, a casual drive into the music and culture of Goose. I'm Alex.
And I'm Mike.
On today's episode, we're going to recap the final leg of Goose's 2025 fall tour, from Columbus, Ohio, to Richmond, Virginia, to Philly, and we'll touch on Rise Festival a little bit. But before all that, we're going to get into the news and notes as always. But first, please give us a follow at Slow Ready Pod on all the socials. We're everywhere you're at. I was looking and I totally forget to mention Threads every time. So shout out to Threads, Blue Sky, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram. We're everywhere. And if you want to send us a note about a show you love or anything you want to talk about, or even future topic ideas for the show, feel free to email us at slowreadypod@gmail.com. We always love your feedback. And like I said, let's get into the news and notes, Mike. It's pretty light this week, but a few things to touch on in our first segment we call Hot Tea. So real quick, just wanted to touch on this. The Moncton show from the Harvest Moon Festival is up on Nugs from September 12th to listen to. I know people were asking about that one. Came up a little bit late, but seems like a great show. I have not had the chance to listen through it all the way, but I really enjoyed the Redbird from this. You have a chance to listen to this one yet, Mike?
My eyes got really big when you mentioned that because this Redbird is really, really good. Yeah. I also really dig the In Your Eyes. All these jams are kind of like short and compact, but the Animal's also really fun. It's in a 2025 style as it has been. But yeah, for all compact jams, this is actually a really good set.
Yeah, looks like a great festival set. I can't wait to finish listening. I just kind of bopped around and picked some of the big highlight tunes from just looking at the paper set list, and it seemed like a great time.
For sure.
And then the other bit of news is just another casual private show in Charlotte for this private music club. Mike, you went last year. Unfortunately, we could not go this year. Honestly, didn't even know about it. But it was on September 28th, the day after the Charlotte show you were at the Revelry once again. And do you want to read the set for me?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I actually found out about this show 2 days before the Charlotte show. Unfortunately, I just did not, after just recently moving to Georgia, have $500 on hand to go again for a second year in a row. But
That's a lot.
This is a really good set that they played for this private show. It's a really cool small venue, but they started with Echo of a Rose, fast version, Green River, Born, Dustin Hoffman, Turn Clouds, How It Ends, Elizabeth, and Rockdale set closer. And then for set 2, they had Feel It Now, Your Direction, Mississippi Half Step, which kind of broke my heart, the Empress of Organos, Jedstone, and Empress of Organos to complete a sandwich with an encore of Christmas Card from a Hooker. And to say that I feel like I got gypped on my show from the previous year, not that it wasn't amazing. And I did get to see the crew band and caught her in a full Buc-ee's onesie, which was an experience that I can't really put a price on. This set list is outstanding for a private show, and I feel like they really stepped it up for round 2 here.
Yeah, it looks awesome on paper. Hopefully it was a great time for anyone who could have attended. We got some pictures and videos sent to us and saw some through the grapevine. Looked like an awesome setting again. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of non-Goose fans, so I'm sure a lot of chompers like you saw last time, Mike. But if you can just lock into the music, I'm sure it was fantastic.
And it's the easiest time ever to get to the rail because you're surrounded by a bunch of stockbrokers that could not care less. So that part's really stress-free.
Well, if that makes you feel better, it's like it's not our normal people at the show, I guess, in a lot of ways. So
yeah.
Hopefully everyone who got to go and is a huge diehard Goose fan had a great time.
For sure.
But yeah, with that's all the news and notes for this week. You know they're going to announce something the second we stop recording here on this Monday night. But let's get into the flow down, Mike. Let's recap some shows, man.
Let's do it. Lots of recap.
Yeah. And last time we left off was with your Charlotte show before this private show. And now we move on to Goose in Columbus, Ohio on September 30th at Kemba Live. And the show started with a Dr. Darkness, Into My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media, then got Interlude 2, Into Jive 1, Turbulence in the Night Rays, Spain, Please Forgive Me, and Jive Lee to close out set 1. And set 2 opened with Arrow, Into Wisteria Lane, Into A Western Sun, Into Butter Rum, and then got a Hot Tea into Can't Get You Out of My Head, back into Hot Tea with an encore of Salt. So where do we want to start here, Mike? You have any set one highlights you want to talk through, or just really anything you want to touch on with this show?
Yeah, so I'm kind of flexible. I'll kind of go wherever you want to here because I have mixed feelings about this set one. I'll just be completely honest. I feel like it's a very good collection of songs. Obviously, I have no problems with anything that got played this night, but the order and flow of it is kind of strange. Rick's alluded to playing Dr. Darkness early when he's feeling like he needs to kind of do something to get into the vibe or the rhythm. I kind of felt like this set one is like a microcosm of that. The big highlight for me is definitely the Jively set closer, which I kind of want to get into right away. But just some quick notes. I do think that it's really cool to see Spain come back. I think that's a really good cover, and glad to see it make a comeback after I want to say it was like the first time in a year since last
Yep.
summer, actually. So that's a highlight for me. And anytime Turbulence gets a play is also a highlight for me. But kind of a chunky flow here.
I could not agree with you more. The mind meld continues on this show, keeping it boring for y'all out there. But yeah, the flow was just off watching it from home. I'm sure in person it's great as it always is when you're at a Goose show, but it just felt like something was a little bit off on this night, and it started to feel like it picked up a little bit with Spain and Please Forgive Me getting the crowd going with some fan favorite covers and some great, funky jazz that Rick loves leaning into with Spain. But the real gem, like you said, is this Jive Lee, and I would absolutely love to get into that with you. So, what do you think about this one? Where do you want to start with it?
I mean, it's a lot to break down, so I don't know if I can like be brief about it, but it came out of its like initially funky section as it usually starts off with like a more introspective, like kind of like a Bornish opening section where it was like punctuated by like delayed, like super echoey keys from Peter, and Trevor and Cotter just kind of held down this steady tempo that featured like just very melodic runs from Trevor as he is wont to do. And Rick and Peter, they kind of trade off on like repeating progressions as the jam moves. And Trevor kind of leads them into this like 3/4 progression before they get back into this like swampy staggered section. And then it goes mildly dark before finishing like in this more chaotic area. And then they have this blissy peak when they bring the tempo back, and it starts to become like reminiscent of like some of the Cap jams where it just has that gradual build with the Cotter shuffle and like highly percussive, and it just grows and morphs over time into a joyous peak dance party to close down set one. And this is definitely like one of my favorite set one closers of 2025 for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong. The show flow is out of whack for a minute there, but this is like a highlight of the year. It's up there for me, and I really like the jumping off point to your point that you made at the start of this. The jumping off point to get into this jam was just really restrained, really allowing Trevor and Peter and of course Cotter to shine. And actually, my first note on the page was like, I'm running out of adjectives to talk about Cotter Ellis being amazing, and I feel like we don't talk about him enough because we're out of adjectives to describe how amazing he is. But yeah, it's hard to find enough praise to give Cotter, and the way that he was dancing around Rick and Peter and Trevor trading little shots of melody early there to then kind of like guide the band into the next segment of the jam was just really mind blowing to me early on. And that vintage rock section that where they kind of hit the pivot on the jam really blew my mind. Like normally you see a peak and then you pivot. It was like, let's pivot during the peak here. And Cotter's doing his best Animal, the Muppet impression here with the just absolute lunacy on the toms on the kit. And then moves into a more flowing beat to just take that last 9-10 minute build to the huge and final peak on the outro, which just the Cotter shuffle, man. He's just the man. Cannot give him enough praise.
Dude is unreal, and this is definitely the crown gem. And I just want to come back briefly to this whole set flow thing with set one. I just, at the end of the day, like I love all these songs, but I just don't, I'm not seeing any of the connectors. I don't see how Dr. Darkness connects to my mind. They just, the juxtapositions, and I don't like, obviously Interlude connects with Jive One really well, and Turbulence to a degree, but then two covers back to back that seemingly have, nothing to do with each other to then bring it back for the Jively. It just felt like they were randomly almost pulling out of a bucket. And so I don't know. It feels weird to complain about set flow because I'm always the one saying like try anything new. I'm never going to be against it. And I guess like in theory I'm not against this, but like I wouldn't advise taking this route again at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like this is almost like if you were doing Goose Bingo and it was like, I don't want to say nightmare scenario because it's still fun, but it's just like you're
Yeah.
getting all these really short songs like back to back to back, and there's not like room to like breathe and allow like great transition work and stuff like that to where you can at least like kind of match things thematically, musically and stuff. It just kind of felt like one after the other after the other. It was just like start stop. It felt like, and then Jive Lee really got the show going because I really did enjoy the rest of this show from that point on. But unfortunately, you had a set break in between two great segments of the show, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean you absolutely nailed it because from Jive Lee on, this show is way better and more consistent, and the flow makes sense, and you can see the connection points. So I can't wait to get into set two because it's a much more easy and even ride.
Yeah. So, anything else on Lee before we go into Arrow here for set two?
No, but it's a playlist jam.
Awesome. So, yeah, this Arrow, man, I really enjoyed this one. Uh, the marimba was very strong early on, kind of giving you this like whimsical, punchy groove early. And I thought this was going to be like oh, we're like in like Snow White land, happy little jam, strolling through Disney Princess land with the birds chirping, and then the tension just starts building, and it turned into. You ever watch that show on the internet when we were kids, Happy Tree Friends, where like the animals are cute and they chainsaw each other
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
It was dark. That's what we got here, into this gritty, fuzzier sound from Rick and a really driving groove that felt like a chainsaw sawing the happiness in half on this thing and serving as a segue into a monster wisteria.
Yeah, glad you brought up Peter's percussive keys because I thought he used them uniquely here. I hadn't quite heard him use them in a way that gave that creepy sort of funhouse vibe, which was fun and playful. And because of that, it almost seemed like Rick introduces this like quick repeating melody that takes the jam into even more of a circus like environment where it just feels all so topsy turvy. And when they get to the end, they kind of augment back to that familiar back and forth swinging rocking progression that they have used from time to time in Hunger Sights and Echoes and things like that. But it also just melts away gorgeously in Wisteria Lane. So yeah, this is a really, really solid arrow.
Yeah, and people have been hot and cold about Arrow this year opening set two because it just feels like it happens a lot. But this is definitely the best version, I think, of this fall tour, especially that wasn't just like sticking to the normal let's have a good time, quote unquote type one archetype. This one actually went for a little bit of a ride and had a little fun.
Yeah, no, it was like a circus filled with murder clowns. I mean, it was different, so I was really into it.
I had to get the Happy Tree Friends reference in there because I hadn't thought about that in 20 years and it
It
just
worked.
popped in my
Yeah,
head.
no, it's appropriate.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I want to get into this wisteria more than anything because this is my highlight of the show by far. But I'll let you go first. I went first on Arrow, so I want to hear your thoughts.
I'm
First.
just dying laughing because like we can't meld anymore. Like this is my highlight of the show for sure. I mean, it's easily the highlight of the show. It starts off in that same spare atmospheric space like the Born or like the jam earlier with the Jive Lee, but it quickly delves into some Dark Goose, and again just showing a lot of that intentionality and efficiency and getting to the point right away. Rick has these like hypnotic burst runs with the distortion turned all the way up. And Trevor keeps like accentuating the progression with these small shifts here and there and enunciating on all of Cotter's hits, who has inserted into his, I guess we're just like it's his signature thing, the Cotter shuffle, but he's got these drumline rolls almost integrated into that stagger, and this just builds and
Yes.
builds until they hit this transcendent bliss section that's highlighted with some of the most gorgeous soloing that only Rick can do when Goose gets into these places. And I got to pull up the runtime here just to double check and make sure I'm right on here. But yeah, this is 20 minutes and 7 seconds of just absolute amazing jamming.
And the crazy part is that bliss section is like 4 minutes or something. I can't call the exact timestamp. It's short, but it feels like you got your fill of it. It was just absolutely beautifully constructed, and I couldn't have said that much better myself with that that heavenly, glorious bliss soundscape they can get into is the best thing they do for me. And I think it resonates with the fan base too. As much as I love Dark Goose, it's like, this is like their bag.
Well, I mean, I will definitely say I'm not necessarily the first person that goes for the bliss jams, but anytime they do hit something like this, which I do feel like, at least for a minute or two, the soloing from Rick here rises to the level of the Philly Tumble. Not like for that sustained period, which is what made that jam so unique and special, but for a couple moments here, you're in that, and you just have to stand back and go like, this guy is the only guy that can make it sound quite this gorgeous right now. And so even though it may not be like my favorite style of jamming, I do just sit there and just go like, God, how does he do it?
I couldn't say it much better. I'm like here for the head banging. Let's ride into hell in the darkness. I'm gonna stand for that. But then it gets me. The bliss, this type of bliss gets me, and I think it's like truly where they just set themselves apart in a lot of ways to a lot that's in the scene.
It's definitely where Rick sets himself apart.
It's so funny that you said almost verbatim what I had in my notes. I said Cotter Shuffle goes in with the marching snare beat going. I'm just cracking up. I can't say much else, but it's just so funny. We don't consult each other and we have the same notes.
Good ears, man.
I did think when they were going into that Bliss section, though, I really thought they were going to do for the third time this year going into Echo Over Rose because it sounded like it, and it was a nice surprise to shift into that section and the dichotomy of like amazing grimy dark section for such a sustained period to just ascend into the light and be that gorgeous was really remarkable for this 20-minute runtime. And they got to play Wisteria more, dude. It's just like the best.
And I'm totally just speaking out of my ass here, but is this the longest Wisteria of the year? Because I mean, I know like San Fran's was really good, but I think it was around 16 minutes or something like that, and I'm a big fan of it, but it was definitely shorter than this. So I mean, like, it just hasn't been getting the runtime. And I think about like Portland, Maine last year, the amazing Wisteria that they got that was like in the running, right till the bitter end with Jam of the Year stuff. So it deserves more runtime and it deserves more plays, to your point. Like, it's one of the most classic songs in the catalog, and I 100% agree with you.
Totally. It's definitely the longest version of the year so far. It's only been played a handful of times too. Let's get Wisteria back in the rotation because it does not miss when it jams.
Yeah, absolutely.
And continuing the hot part of this set for me, A Western Sun came next. I like that it gets taken out for a little jam more often than not these days. There was such a long stretch where it didn't get jammed. So even if it's just like a basic, short, type 1 type of jam, I'm here for it. I was not the craziest about it being recorded for Butter Rum, especially Butter Rum that also didn't jam. Like, we're like Butter Rum sympathizers.
Let's be fair. We're Butter Rum apologists, so like we have our own perspective on that song.
Yeah, like we love it when it jams, but if you're gonna get two short great songs like Western Sun and then the Butter Rum Jam is the part that I like of that song the most, I would just take one or the other kind of thing. But interesting set listing to say the least.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a fan of this Western Sun Jam. I think, yeah, it's 11 minutes 40 seconds, but it's a nice little slinky, jazzy, funky, shorter jam. It's in kind of the same style as like Wilmington, and a lot of these have been that maybe went longer but stayed in the same genre. But Butter Rum here kind of feels like the odd man out. It feels like if there was a mistake in set two, and I'm not necessarily saying there was, because I think overall this set two plays so much better than set one, and it's kind of just a fun ride start to finish. But Butter Rum is kind of the odd person out here because it just kind of brings the energy up, and it almost seems like it's just setting the table for what we're about to talk about that comes right after it. Whereas in my mind, you could have just jumped into what's about to happen next and stretched that out. Yep. But I don't know if you want to just jump into that next.
Yeah. I was going to say, we have the hot tea sandwich to close this thing out with Kylie Minogue in the middle of it. And because the jamming was so good on those first two songs, they took them out for a little bit of a ride. It just kind of compressed everything on the back half of this set list down. So you got an 8-minute Butter Rum, and you got like 9 minutes of hot tea, 6 minutes of Kylie, and then 3 minutes of hot tea to close it out. It just really kind of compressed everything down to where I could see the vision if they let things go out for a ride a little bit. But I'm grateful that Wisteria and Arrow went so well that we have this quote-unquote problem to discuss.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I do have to remark that if you're just looking at it in order, the Jively, Arrow, and Wisteria, that's over an hour of music, and they all happen in concurrence. Yes, there's a set break, but that's 3 just brilliant takes of the catalog right there. But just for
Mhm.
me, quibbling just minorly with the second set, if you take the 8 minutes of Butter Rum out and add, I don't know, 3 minutes to the front of Hot Tea, 2 minutes to the back of Hot Tea, and 2 minutes to, Kylie, I think that this set 2 flows even a little bit better, and you don't lose any of the energy, because I know Butter Rum's there to keep the energy up there for the ending run, but I don't think the energy is lost with that Hot Tea sandwich just being a little bit more stretched out. But that's nitpicking. I still think this set 2 is wildly fun.
Oh yeah, and the hot tea sandwich was really fun. It was like Goose Light once again here. I really thought in the moment, because we were getting so close to the encore time, that they were going to close the second set with Kylie, which would have been an interesting note, because the only time it's ever closed a set 2 was exactly 3 years prior on the same day. I was like, oh, that would have been a really neat nod to that. But then they went back into hot tea, which is cool. But I think they could have improved this set with another thing, with just doing a tea prize for the encore and letting this Kylie ride out. But hey, that would have made it interesting. But it was really cool either way, really fun. Get a little Goose Light and or go into the encore break with a little dance party.
For sure.
And the encore was just a short version. They were pressing up against curfew here and got an 8-minute salt to close things out. It always slaps.
I honestly just think that that's the main reason that they've been throwing it in so many encores. It's just, it doesn't matter how many minutes long it is. It's going to just slap, like you said. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It hits every time.
Yeah, and I'll take that as an original over a cover any day. I always love to see an original in the encore slot.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like Shama or something, then I'm 100% with you.
Right, right. There's some exceptions
Yeah,
for sure.
just a couple.
All right. So anything else on Columbus here before we get into 2 nights of Richmond?
No, I'm ready. Let's do it. Go to Virginia.
All right. So Virginia is for jammers. October 2nd at the Allianz Amphitheater in Richmond, Virginia. You want to read this set off for me, Mike?
Yeah, of course. So starts off with Everything Must Go. Got a draconian meter maid. Lead up. All I Need. Same Old Shenanigans. First time cover of Chocolate Town. And then California Magic, Indian River, and Dawn closing down set 1. And then set 2's got Animal, Redbird, Atlas Dogs. First time ever played Electric Dim Lights, Sinner Man, and an encore of Turn On Your Love Light. Because why not?
Yeah. So set 1 here. Open with EMG for the first time in 3 years, basically, since the 15th of October in 2022. Fun way to open a show. Even if it's a short version of this one continued the optimism we have that we're not going to stick to the version you don't like, Mike. It was a little bit like that, but it continued like a decent trajectory, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm getting adjusted to it. It's been enough time now to where I've sort of just, it is what it is. But I mean, it always gets the greatest jams, so it's really cool to see it in the opener spot. I think it's the second time ever, like you said, first time in 3 years. So it really sets a nice tone. It kind of reminds me of that feeling of when they just opened with Into the Mist out of nowhere in Milwaukee in February, where you're just like, well, definitely wasn't expecting that to start things off. It's a really, really good start. It has a kind of an interesting jam here. It's compact, obviously, but it's a moody minor key based rock jam. It doesn't really venture off into type 2 or anything, but I think when you've got such a rare occurrence starting off the show, it's kind of hard to pick at that.
Yeah, no, and this wound up being the longest song of the set for a long time, even with its short runtime, which was interesting. But in my opinion, this set flowed a little bit better than the set 1 from Columbus, even with the shorter runtimes, because we go into Draconian Meter Maid, a short version at 9.5 minutes. It's still a Bliss vehicle, right? This one was a little bit different of a feel, with a little springier of a feel, but one day we'll get the 25-minute Draconian for you, Mike, because I know you're waiting.
I'm always waiting. Draconian is like, I'll say it forever. It's the most solid middle range jam vehicle that they have. It literally never lets me down. it's nice laid back jamming that leads to a nice blissy peak, but it is on the shorter side, which is kind of a theme for this set one. And I guess I'll kind of split the difference. I agree with you to a point. I think this set one flows better than the set one in Ohio, but I still think that this set one struggles with a lot of the same issues. I'm still like, for me, missing a lot of the obvious connectors. Why is this song next to this one or before or after that one? Uh, I have a lot of questions as to like the thought process as to why these songs land where they are. But after that Draconian, I will say that I'm happy Lead Up is back.
Yeah. So I do agree with you about some of the set one, but I thought that the opening three and the final three of the set really flowed pretty well. And it was just this middle portion that comes out after this lead up that was kind of like a little head tilt. But it was still fun. It was just like this is a lot of songy songs versus like giving a little time for something to breathe. But lead up, awesome. Always love that tune. I really want to see them take it for like at least 3 or 4 minutes of a ride here because it's always 6 minutes long, and I think it could get like the Bob Don kind of treatment and get a little jam and
Yeah.
get a lead up with at some point.
Yeah. That'd be great. I'm in full support. And I'm saying all the time that Lead Up, like, it occupies a similar space to Drive, which is obviously a huge jam vehicle. And so, like, I don't see any reason, and we'll get to this when we get to the Philly show, but it's clear to me that they know anything is possible with this catalog of theirs, even the things that have kind of been the same way for a long time. So, if we need to start a campaign to get Lead Up to some jamming, I'm for it. I think it could do it.
Well, the problem they're running into too is they have so many good songs now that it's
Yeah,
tough to
it's just true.
find the time to play them all.
Can't jam them all. Yeah, I get that.
So I'll just rattle off this next run of three real quick, unless you have any specific notes on the three. But all I need was a short version here, a little bouncy back and forth between Rick and Peter early on it. Cotter leaned into their pattern with a little diddle heavy rhythm on the snare, and that made it sound like it was going to take off. But then it quickly moved into SOS with no Dawn on it. So weird seeing a 4-minute SOS on the set list a few times this year, but we obviously got Dawn at the back of this set. And then the debut of Chocolate Town, like you said, and they did a great job on this Ween cover. I enjoyed it. I just think, to your point, by this point in the set list, everyone was waiting for some kind of big jam, it felt like, because it was a run of like 5 songs in a row with under 10 minutes, most of them being like 6 minutes or under or something like that. And everyone was just kind of like waiting for things to explode. And I think the back half of the set did pretty well, but it was just maybe weird slotting for Chocolate Town.
I mean, I'm getting a little bit annoyed with how much you're shouting out my thoughts before I have a chance to say them. But Chocolate Town is by far to me like the most misplaced song in this set. Like, I like it if you swap it with Lead Up. I like it better if you swap it with Draconian. I think it definitely belongs earlier in set one
Right.
or in set two. And so that to me like made the least amount of sense out of everything that they did here. Or you need like more of the power player songs in the catalog backing up Chocolate Town so that like it's coming off of like 2 certified bangers in a row. And like I'm the most biased to SOS because if we're just going off of like songs as they exist as songs, SOS is like a top 5 song for me. So like
Right.
I love it, but in the flow of this set here, you need a more powerful song coming before this first time cover, in my opinion. And so it just feels like a fish out of water. That being said, please keep playing this cover because it sounded incredible.
It sounded great. It's no knock on the cover. It's a show flow thing. Like I think back to Louisville, where maybe people were complaining it didn't get the big jams there, but you got like 15-minute Inside Out, 15-minute All I Need. Like you got a little bit of run time to let things breathe, and then it wasn't just a run of like song where you felt like it was start stop for an extended period of time. But speaking of extended period, that's where it starts in this set, right? Because California Magic
Yeah.
had a little extra sauce on it this version, right? Did you have anything to say about it?
Nothing other than I just thought that this was a cool little outro jam on it. I haven't heard it this way before. I definitely wasn't calling for it or expecting it. So it was welcome.
Yeah, I really like that chill outro. I think that could stay. Like, I know people are hit or miss on this song, probably because they like the jams and stuff. But if you're gonna get a cool little segue from this song, like we did with this going into Indian River, I'm here for it.
Well, I was definitely going to say if they do pair it with Indian River again, definitely do the outro jam again, because if they were just I'm not inside their minds, but if it was just like let's invent a way to kind of segue this perfectly into Indian River, A+ job, guys. So like if they pair these two songs together, definitely include that, because that was a wonderful bridge.
It was a nod the whole way. Like you could have called it from 5 seconds into that transition, but it was fun to watch the band maneuver slowly but confidently towards the 80s version of Indian River. And just again, I had it 3 times in my notes. The gorgeous intro just really helps set the tone for an Indian River that's short like this. And even if the 80s synth version isn't your favorite, it just was hype because you had a cool transition like that, in my opinion. But the Welcome to Delta Jam was really when the crowd finally started going when I was watching the feed. Like the dancing really started then. And it was nice to see it come back after such a long time because it had been almost a year since the last Welcome to Delta Jam 2 in Miami, October 30th, 2024. Last 80s synth Welcome to Delta dance party.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Delta Jam. I'm never going to be one that says that it gets overplayed, because I think it's like one of the most fun things that's in the Goose catalog. I mean, I guess in quotes in the catalog, but I think that it was much needed and it brought the energy back up in a really big way. We talked a little bit about setlist flow issues, but this brought it all the way back up, and kind of it needed to with what was about to come after this, because you kind of needed to get that pulse rate going for what was going to close down set one.
Yeah, and let's just get into it. Dawn here. It's always say that SOS Dawn is like one of my favorites, if not my favorite way to close set one. Really like the extended run time they're giving on Dawn this year, and I think the debate is officially put to bed for everyone on whether this is a song. Even after Rick's comments, it's been standalone enough times now and taken for a ride to where there's really no debate. But yeah, this felt like an extension of the Welcome to Delta Jam in a lot of ways, and maybe not a ton for me to talk about on this, but it was just a really fun jam all the way through with bright key shots shining through the whole way, and felt like it hit something like 20 micro peaks on this thing. It was just constant uplifting energy the whole way.
Well, and that was something that you made me think of that I did want to touch on before we leave this area of the show. But the Delta Jam, while it may be like officially have been absent for a little while now, it has been teased so long and danced around so much in so many of the jams. So I guess like I hadn't even really noticed specifically how long it had been missing, other than the fact that Indian River has just been kind of suspiciously MIA for a long period of time, generally speaking. But they've been interpolating it into Animal and into all these other
Oh
jams.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like it feels like it's been gone but not forgotten, so to speak. But yeah, I had kind of the same thoughts as you. This Dawn definitely kind of danced around that same area, and it felt like a slightly different take on the jam, because it felt like that jam for at least a long stretch of time had started to get more towards, at least teetering towards the electronica based dance parties, but this felt more like a straight on like rocking blissy dance party, and just a really great time to end the set.
Yeah, just really great stuff through and through. And don't quote me on the Welcome to Delta being gone from every song. It was just the Indian River Delta combo that we
Yeah,
were so used to. It had been a year, but it definitely had a
yeah.
lot of nods, if not a full on tease somewhere else, I'm sure at some point. But yeah, that's set one. So then we open set two with this animal here, and they've been loving the set two animal along with the set two arrow. Something about A songs. And I thought this was a really fun way to kick off the set too. Like this one sounded a little different again for the second animal in a row, where this one was much more emotional to me than most. And it seemed like Rick was focusing on a lot of deliberate sustained notes versus like the normal quick flying up and down the guitar neck. Let's speed riff this thing and have a jolly good time. This was like much more thoughtful.
I agree. It starts off with the laid back funky grooves, but it keeps kind of getting brighter over time. And I think to your point about Rick, he has these like, I guess I would describe them as chilled out blissy lines, and Peter also has some really cool chord work on the piano that gives the jam some depth and contrast to what he's doing. It has a really good peak too, and the transition from it into Redbird was phenomenal.
Oh my God, we are so back, Redbird! Finally, this tour.
I know you were ready.
This was my highlight of the show. I think finally seeing a Redbird on the set probably is part of the hype. But I thought that the way they entered the jam with Cotter hitting the ground running with that hi-hat heavy groove and the beautiful high keys from Peter dancing around him, and then Trevor building slowly with these bubbly riffs before Rick really took over with this gritty but choral sound that I can't really quite put my finger on because I'm not the best with pedals and stuff like that. But it looked like it was running out of his whammy pedal watching the video back. It was just a really cool soundscape they got into there early, and then it builds really quickly into a buzzing full band peak. Where listening back, you're like, this is one of those moments at a show where you're looking at the stage and you're like, these guys are in perfect sync, flawlessly moving around and dancing around each other and flowing into the next section of the jam. And then I really enjoyed the outro of this jam as well, which was this swirling riff where Cotter's once again just absolutely cooking with gas like a typhoon of glory to the finish line to segue into Atlas Dogs.
Typhoon of Glory. We're coining that. That's outstanding.
Just pulled that out of my ass.
Yeah,
I'm kind of proud of that.
You should be. I love this Redbird. Redbird always delivers. It's not one of my favorite songs in the catalog, but it is one of my favorite things to catch live because the jams are just always A+. It starts off in that vibey, steady groove, but I thought, again, like he's been kind of my MVP lately, but Peter latches on to a very cool line on piano early on, and it just seems like the band kind of just is like, yes, let's do that. Let's go down that road. And I love what you were talking about, those where Rick is like underlaying some very cool, like textured palm muted riffs that he gradually just keeps a little bit less palm muting, a little bit less until they're just fully unleashed. And it just goes through several amazing peaks and tension builds. And they just kind of let it bleed out into Atlas Dogs is how I described the outro. And it was just, again, Redbird never ever lets me down in a concert setting.
It's rare, and it's usually when it gets cut short. But
yeah,
when it goes out for a ride, it's like top notch. That's why I always say it's my favorite. It's because of the jams.
Yeah, you are right.
But I said Redbird was my highlight. It's really this Redbird Atlas Dogs run as a totality, and obviously it was the band's highlight too because they immediately posted it to YouTube. So if you haven't listened yet, go watch that. But yeah, let's hear your thoughts on this Jam Dogs here. I've been talking a lot lately.
Yeah, I mean, mine are kind of brief, but it's just the interesting part about this is that it does follow a familiar starting place for the jam. If you've heard a lot of Atlas Dogs and listened to a bunch of live versions, it's going to be pretty familiar, but it takes this interesting twist and has a different ending progression and some extremely dark tension builds near the end that just, it was like they took the left fork in the road instead of what they normally would do with this, and it was really fun to see.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how they built around like white boys going to the Olive Garden, dancing around the Tarantella Napolitana thing. I never say that right.
Yeah.
And then shifting into like a frenetic dark section that was just pure chaos and so tense. Embracing spooky season was my only notes I really wrote for that. But it felt like you were in some kind of horror movie chase scene or something for that frenetic run. It was honestly kind of shocking looking back at the runtime because it felt like you were in that segment for such a long time, and then you look back and it was super short but just felt so fleshed out. It was really quite a ride there.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where like I was wondering where the inspiration came from because sometimes like, you know, when you look back at like the February run, obviously the inspiration for darker jams was there throughout because it was affecting all the songs and all the shows. But with here it's like, well, there was no setup earlier in the show. Atlas Dogs doesn't have a history of doing this, so it was just a total curveball, but very fun to watch from the couch.
Yeah, and you could not get a bigger dichotomy from this dark section that ended Dogs into Dim Lights, where we completely lied on our last episode and said there was like 3 power cooldown songs because now we have to add a fourth here because Dim Lights is just the best. First time played electric, and I was so jealous of everyone there. That was just epic.
Yeah. I mean, I think, by the time we record our next episode, we'll realize that it's actually like 13 songs are in the running for that cooldown slot number one
Yeah,
position. So,
just like there's 116 top 5 Goose songs. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. That's what I tell all my friends, anyways, that aren't into Goose. But yeah, Dim Lights, obviously an amazing song. If they keep playing it this way, I literally put in quotation might have to enter the best cooldown song discussion. So that was my only note on it. So you and I were thinking the same way about that as well. And that list is just going to keep growing, I guess.
To be fair to us, we didn't have the precedent of it being a cool down song electric ever. It was
Sure.
early
Yeah.
acoustic, so in Arabelo.
Yeah. I didn't know it was a thing. It is now.
But yeah, you said there was no precedent to the Atlas Dogs going dark, but there was precedent for this Sinnerman, which was an epic Goonsey set closer in Louisville, and they were just like, let's run this back. This was sick. And the band continued to lean into those dark themes from Atlas Dogs, right? Overlaying some sinister over that industrial ravey sound. Once again, Blade was doing some great work out there slaying some vampires.
Yeah, it's so fun and also like ridiculously hard to describe the Goons because a lot of it can be kind of static, like super fun, like the most fun you can have at a concert, obviously, but a lot of it's not super dynamic. And so I find myself sometimes running out of ways to describe what I'm hearing. But the only thing I put for this was it felt sort of like the Daft Punk soundtrack for the movie Tron, but if Tron was reimagined as an A24 horror film. Just
does A24 make horror films? I've never even
Oh, they do. And they're really rough.
That's not my genre, so though
yeah.
What was the Frasier movie, The Whale? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
That was as horror as I get with A24. That was horrifying.
I've got some films I'm not going to recommend to you, my dude. So we'll just leave it there.
I'm a scaredy cat. I don't do horror movies.
It's all good.
But yeah, extra stank on this Sinnerman. Great time. Like, I don't have a ton to say about it other than just like a dark dance party. And I enjoy that. I really think that they're leaning into the sound this year. And I think I've seen a lot of discourse about how people are quote unquote tired of the Goons, some of the fan base. And it's just, let's enjoy while we got it because it's not going to be here like this forever. They're just enjoying it right now.
Yeah, I think they keep finding new ground in it. So as long as they can keep plumbing new depths of it, I'm for whatever genre they're in.
Yeah. And then the band exited the stage for a quick encore break, and Rick came out and said, we got a bunch of other shit planned. And then they played Turn On Your Love Light, short version to close out the set. So they were just having too much fun jamming the second set and save some stuff for night 2, I guess.
Yeah, I get a lot of Love Lights, but if you go to a lot of Goose shows, you're going to get a lot of Love Lights.
That you are. So that puts a bow on night 1, and we still have night 2 to come, which was another great time. Opening up set 1 with I Would Die For You, then got Royal, Hot Love and the Lazy Poet, into Flowdown, then a Yeti sandwich with Yeti Pumped Up Kicks Yeti, Wake Up for the first time in 3 years, then Silver Rising Arcadia to close out set 1, and set 2 opened with So Ready, then got Born, into Hunger Sight, into Make the Move, and Drip Field to close it out with an encore of 726. So set 1 here, once again, not my favorite set 1 in the world. It was fine. A lot of good songs here, but I really like when they take something out for some improv earlier in a set to kind of get their feet wet sometimes versus it being a little songy like this. But I Would Die For You, cool opener.
Yeah, I'm going to preface everything that I say here because I don't want people to be mad at me, but I love Goose more than anything in the world. They are my favorite band. It's not even close. This show was a good show, but for my standards of Goose, this is my least favorite show of the tour. So I think the flow of this one is absolutely all over the place, and I do not understand it at all. I Would Die For You is a great cover, but I don't love it as an opener. That could just be personal bias, but everyone knows that I like high energy, preferably funky, rocky music like that. So to me, like this is not where I would slot this.
No, it's unique. That's why I say it's a cool opener, and like it's just a cool stat to have on your sheet. And I don't think it's as terrible as you, my friend. But um, I think Royal works much better as an opener, like they did over. It was in Charlotte, right? Yeah, Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah.
Like I think if they flipped
I
those, it
agree.
would have worked great. But
Yes, definitely. And it does have a cool groove on this short jam. So I do want to say that. I thought that was nice. If you are going to use as an opener, at least like give me a little bit of a bridge coming out of it, which they did. But I think your point is well taken. You swap these first two and we're already into a way better flow.
yeah, and then you get a good run going of Dancy Royal, Dancy Hot Love and Lazy Poet, Dancy Flow Down. I don't have a ton to say on any of those. It's a run of songs that people get a crowd pop and people dance to, whether it's the most popular thing on the sickos part of the internet that we are usually on. I don't know, but it looked like people were having fun on the stream.
Well, I will say if I was at the show, this run of songs, I would be having a lot of fun during. Like it would be impossible not to have fun during this run if you were at the show. So I don't really have any complaints about this. And unlike the previous shows that we've been discussing, I get all these songs connect for me. There's nothing here where I'm like, that's a chunky song selection. So I'm pretty good with this. And I did think that the flow down, it always comes down to the intro, but it did have some intense Spanish flair in there that I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a fun listen.
Yeah, as is Yeti Kicks Yeti. It's not
Yes,
not a
definitely.
surprise or super deep anymore. I thought the people having like a meltdown about there being another Yeti Kicks Yeti sandwich was a little like overstated because you got 10 minutes of Yeti jamming on the front end and then you got pumped up kicks and then got back into a little more Yeti. Like you got a good amount of Yeti there. It's a pretty solid run.
I'm on your side. Yeah, no, I'm 100% on your side when it comes to that. I mean, first of all, I like the Pumped Up Kicks cover, and I thought that this worked really well in this here, and you do get a very good amount of Yeti. So I think that the hate for that is overstated, and clearly with this set, they wanted to do a high energy, fun, dancey first set. And so, like, my main issue with it is just the opener. All the rest of it, to me, seems like very deliberate and smart choices.
Yeah, and to our point for night one, the flow felt a little more on point, like where it didn't feel start stop so much as it was just energy kind
Yeah.
of rode the whole way through here. You get a little bit of a cool down with Wake Up for the first time in 3 years again. 256 shows, it says on Goose. Wow. I remember when this Arcade Fire cover was being played on like every commercial and like every sporting event, and it was like the worst, but it's nice to see it come back after a minute with Goose.
Yeah, I thought it sounded great. And I think it actually, this was one of the ones where, like some of the previous shows, I didn't understand really the slotting of the covers. I think the cover works really good here coming off that Yeti sandwich.
Totally. And in a lot of ways, it goes really well with Silver Rising too, thematically. Especially when you think of like all the nods to Where the Wild Things Are or whatever when they used this song for that movie version of it. So I just thought it kind of fit a little bit thematically there. And then really, honestly, the highlight of this set one to me is this Arcadia. It's the first time they really took anything for a little bit of a ride, and it's pretty straightforward, but towards the end there, they were just living in an extended peak. And every time we thought they were going to take the song to the finish line, they just kept going. And it was like trolling the crowd because there was like 7 different crowd pop offs thinking it was getting to the last part of Arcadia. And they're just like, nah, let's keep going.
Yeah, I'll actually say that I felt like the Silver Rising was a bit unnecessary. I think you either do the Wake Up or the Silver Rising. I don't necessarily need both of them there.
Mm-hmm.
But it also seems like they've just been very intent on playing Silver Rising every other show lately. And I can't really argue with the results of it because of all the shows that I've been to this year, it seems like it's maybe like top 3 most popular as far as crowd pops and reactions. So you kind of got to play it, especially when you're on a album tour year.
Yep.
But I definitely want to touch on this Arcadia. I love that it's back here closing down a set 1. I feel like that's a great place for Arcadia, even if my favorite place for it is in the encore. This set really needed this Arcadia, and this is a very solid version. They're efficient getting into the meat and potatoes of it with Rick running like some nice delay loops and Peter laying pretty much all kinds of textures with the Rhodes and the synths. This one has a really, really good peak before coming back to the outro and then set one on a very high note. But yeah, I thought this Arcadia was kind of like ultimately the linchpin that made this set one work.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I also agree on your point about Wake Up and Silver Rising basically serving the same role. And I do think that they match thematically, but it's just like a long run of like the same kind of cool down sound. Because you have
Yeah.
at least you have the peak on Silver Rising, but you have the whole Wake Up is kind of chill, and then the whole start of Silver Rising is chill. So it's a lot of that kind of feel for sure.
Yeah. That's basically what I was getting at. You said it well.
So yeah, that's set one, and then we move on to set two, which came with a little drip tick, but we had to start off with So Ready first. So hot start to the set, right? Got a So Ready into Born. Not really huge jammers or anything super noteworthy, but So Ready always gets a little extra sauce on it since Cotter joined, I want to say. So great way to start a set.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a good burst of energy. It doesn't really do anything differently. I was kind of curious when they chose to open set two with it. Maybe it gets to like a 15 or 16-minute runtime. We get a little bit more of that Spanish flair from Peter or something in there. It didn't do that, but it works because you want to start the set two off with energy, and that's fine. Uh, Throwing in Born there, another 6-minute version. Kind of disappointed that that seems to be its home, at least for the time being, because I'm so used to just Born being, a 20 or 30-minute masterpiece. But they had other plans for this set, and it's still two really good songs to start off, and we've got some really good stuff coming right after it.
Yeah, couldn't have said it much better myself, man. And the good stuff comes with this hunger sight and to make the move run, right? Because this is the highlight of the show for me. Once again, in the second set,
Sure.
middle of the second set is like their home for this short little run of shows we talked about so far. I thought that the Hunger Side Jam was really, really pretty early on, living in like this like chill, bass heavy cocoon of sound that just slowly built into a really emotional Rick solo, right? And that emotion lingered for a bit, but then just quickly caught fire and hit a roaring ending that served as a really slick transition into Make the Move, which I want to get into more. But first, what are your thoughts on this Hunger Site, Mike?
Yeah, totally agree that more of that atmospheric, exploratory, melodic, and airy space that they've been using for. I think that in the past they would use it mainly for Born and like Inside Out and things like that. But it seems like this year and maybe the back half of last year, it's expanded to include a lot more of the repertoire. So like you're seeing more thatches occupy this space. You're seeing a lot more. But I don't really quite remember a hunger site that was this atmospheric or spacey or airy. And so that part was really cool, and it was led a lot by, again, I'm harping on his wonderfulness because I feel like he really has been the star of Fall Tour, but just wonderful keys work from Peter before they move into that high octane finish where Rick just shreds and melts the frets off of his guitar, and they move into those dark tension builds. And they also have like, it seemed like a new organ rock section, but then they instead drop shockingly into Make the Move from there. So yeah, I mean, this hunger site, it's only 18 minutes and 36 seconds, but like I've honestly been debating about putting it on my playlist because it's just so unique for a hunger site.
Yeah, and it's like a shame that it's split up by this Make the Move, which I mean it's cool, but like the two jams really go together so great, and they're like really
Yeah.
together in my mind, and it would definitely be a big contender if they were together for me. But holy crap, this Make the Move like might even be the best improv between the two. If you listen to both sections, this is blistering speed, and Cotter is a maniac once again. I just thought it was absolute improv glory with Rick playing super jazzy throughout. Cotter once again being Sonic the Hedgehog with his arms, and then another tense dark section just highlighting how much this band can squeeze into like a little 10 or 11-minute runtime with dark sections and all kinds of emotion.
Yeah, I didn't have like really like technical notes on it. I just thought it was a really cool dark outro to Make the Move, and I think it has a lot of potential because it was definitely new ground. And if they ever want to revisit that with like a Madhavan or something similar, I definitely would encourage that because there was room to flesh that out way further than they did.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they go back to that at some point soon because it worked out great twice in this tour, but especially on
Yeah,
this Richmond run.
definitely.
And then we close out the Driptych with Drip Field, and this was a pretty cool version. I don't have a ton of notes on this one. Really leaned into that industrial rock sound and kind of just rode a wave of joy through the finish line. It was kind of like set twos have been a lot lately, where it's just let's ride a happy vibe into this encore break.
Yeah, I didn't find any notes about it that were technical that I wanted to call out. I just thought it was cool that Dripfield typically lives in that industrial space and because of that can tend to go a little bit darker, but this one sheds the skin of the industrial side pretty early on and just kind of abandons that for major key bliss jamming, and it just kept lifting higher and higher, and every time that I thought it couldn't lift higher, it kept getting more and more uplifting and joyful. So it was nice to see Dripfield do that. It's done it in the past. They think about, like the St. Augustine version last year was one of the most gorgeous pieces of music I heard last year. So it definitely has done it in the past, but its home lately has definitely been the dark, more 9-inch nails, industrial, heavy duty Dripfield. So fun to see them mix it up, and it's a good 20-minute version.
No, you're right. It did shed that sound pretty early, but it was weird because it was like leaning in, and then they were like, "Nope, let's just get happy as hell here," like pure ecstasy.
Yeah, but the fun part is too, like, and you've said this, like, or alluded to it several times about Cotter, is sometimes when they really get going, even the happy stuff sounds heavy because of how much he's able to just bring that chaos to the drum kit. So it all has the thunder.
Yeah. And then we close out the show on another highlight here for me, bringing it back to the original Bingo Tour days with 726 in the encore. First time it was played was in the encore. And they did a little tease of The Lion Sleeps Tonight early on that really threw me off at first, but that sounded really cool, right?
Yeah, 100%. It was like I immediately had to like Google who the oldies artist was because I knew it was like a one-hit wonder, and I was like, who sings this again? And what is the relation? Why did Rick decide to do this? But super neat, added a lot to the experience, and also just great to have 726 back because you want to talk about great cool down songs in the catalog. That's up there as well and doesn't get played nearly enough. And if you're going to encore with a slow song and it's not going to be This Old Sea, then make it 726 for my money.
Yeah, we couldn't have been more wrong about the cool down song count. We were just prisoners of the moment.
Yeah, we get caught up sometimes in our excitement.
It's like
it's
16 songs and we're just idiots. All right, so that's Richmond. Hopefully everyone who made the trek out had a great time. We have a few friends who made the trek out and somehow didn't continue the drive north to Philly, which
mistake.
I'm sorry, friends, but this Philly run was absolutely incredible. Back to the Man on Saturday, October 4th. I read the last one, Mike. I'll let you read it off, even though I was there.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's put that out there in case you didn't listen to our last episode. Alex was there. Alex was in the pit, living his best life at probably top 3 Goose shows from this year, at least. But anyways, we're starting off here with Pancakes. He gets it again within a week and a half of them.
Go.
Amazing. Seekers on the Ridge, part 1 and part 2, but is a special version of that. So we'll get into that more here in a second. Dustin Hoffman, Rockdale, Big Modern, Give It Time to end set 1. And then set 2, you get an Into the Mist, cover of You Spin Me Round, Madhavan, Thatch, Elmig, and an encore of Salt Again. This one might have to go kind of line by line like we did the previous episodes here recently.
Yeah, this is the standout show, and I really tried to set the show bias to the side when I was analyzing this set the last day and a half or so since recovering from the dance party that was Philly. But yeah, Pancakes opener is a great time. This one didn't really necessarily go anywhere super unique, but it just got the mood in the right place early. Nice for them to take it for a little walk right from the jump, and really appreciated that Trevor was cranked the fuck up. He sounded cranked the fuck up in person, and then listening back, he was cranked the fuck up, and I was like, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much on this Pancakes. It opened my second Goose show ever, and I never get sick of it as an opener. Very upbeat rock jam here that built very efficiently, but cannot contain my excitement over how ready I am to get into this Seekers.
I was gonna say, like, somehow maybe Pancakes is the low light of the show in a highlight filled show.
How is that possible?
It's not. Like, I'm saying, like, you look at it's like that or the encore, maybe. It's just a great show. Anyway, there's no low lights. I'm just being.
Anyway, yeah, no, there's not.
So, Seekers on the Ridge, part 1 and part 2. We had one guy comment on our set list post immediately, like, I'm so sick of Seekers. And I'm like, this is just jammed out Seekers, dude. This is not your normal Seekers. But yeah, surprise. We're getting a jam on Seekers part 1. And I want to hear your thoughts first before I geek out.
Thank you, sweet Jesus, hallelujah. After giving on our hot takes episode, I called it out on our hot takes episode that I thought that this suite needed an injection of some variety of some kind. And I didn't care what it was. I didn't care if you split them up, just played one, just played the other, jammed one, didn't jam the other. Just wanted something to make it less static. And it finally gets a fucking jam. And I mean, I was jumping in the living room. My girlfriend had to calm me down and tell me to relax because this is my highlight of the show. I mean, fuck everything else that happens. And I mean that with all due sincerity, because what happens after this is absolutely amazing. And I'll geek out and nerd out with you about all of it. But Seekers 1 getting a jam is like the biggest Goose news to me of 2025. And it's not even close. So
boom.
With that, I'll back off and let the person that was actually there and got to take it in take over. But like, I'm celebrating like my Oakland Raiders won the Super Bowl, and that's never going to happen. They're not even in Oakland anymore. But I'm sorry. This was absolutely monumental, and I cannot overstate how this is the coolest thing that they've done for me all year. And I wasn't even in Philly. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool, and I was actually like cracking up because I was cracking up at how hilarious you are there, but I was cracking up at the show because they started into this jam, and I look back and you see the people running back to their seats after going to take a bathroom break for Seekers 1. I was like just dying. But yeah, this was really, really cool, and it was a slow cook jam in the best kind of way, starting on a kind of strolling, chill groove, and Trevor once again cranked the fuck up, just being the MVP early on in this thing. Some of the runs he's doing to move the slow crescendo along are just chef's kiss perfection. The band is just riding a vibe most of this time with the slow build. Kind of no one's taking charge, but just kind of letting Trev be like the bass master until Rick kind of takes over at the very end for a sharp ripping outro. And I thought that they were going to split this thing up on top of it being, a surprise jam, because it sounded like it was going to be a surprise transition into another high energy song. And the way that they just like pumped the anti-lock brakes on this thing, it was like a 4-second, like from ripping into Seekers 2 was just actually great. You would think that would be herky jerky, but it sounds absolutely fantastic.
Well, from home, and actually after I listened back, the only specific thing I wanted to call out, other than, again, just thank you, Goose. This was fucking awesome. Made my entire month, basically. But the ending chords there, it actually sounded so much like Drive that I thought we were not only going to get a Seekers jam, but a shocking transition into Drive before coming. Like, it sounded identical almost for us, like, maybe just 4 or 5 seconds. It wasn't a long period of time, but it definitely sounded like Drive there. And I was just like, what on earth is happening?
Yeah, I genuinely would not have guessed Seekers 2, as like obvious as that is at that point. I was like, they're going to go into something crazy here and bring Seekers 2 back at some wild point in the show or something.
Yeah.
And no, it just worked great. It was just a surprising like halt, but not like a herky jerky way. Like I said, it's just really great stuff. And then Seekers 2 always rips. The solo on that's just the best. So good vibes early.
Yeah, it was almost like they crash landed it, but it was like the kind of like crash landing like that takes skill, like, Sully Sullenberger type of deal. Like they crashed it, but like they crashed it like gently, because it was amazing how it landed on Seekers 2 perfectly.
Yeah, well said. So next up was Hoffman, right? So keeping things hot.
Yeah, this Hoffman was really good.
I thought that early on with Hoffman, they were still kind of getting their footing going with like honing in the sound during the song, and it really feels like they've really hit their stride with it now. And the early segment on this jam was really, really pretty, with Rick quickly picking through those descending triads, and the band kind of locks into this gorgeous feeling like you're underwater. That type of bliss jam that they get into every now and then. And it transitions so smoothly from there into Rockdale. But that moment was fleeting and absolutely beautiful, to a place where, like, if I had a complaint, it's I want to live in that more with Dustin Hoffman, because that's a really cool soundscape for them to get into. And this was really compact, but really, really one of the standout jams on Hoffman they've done so far.
Yeah, I agree. They had some lovely blissy moments coming out of the funk, and I thought in particular Rick and Trevor were playing the bob and weave game together that went sort of psychedelic for a bit, and it was just spectacular before, like you said, melting into Rockdale.
Yeah, and then again, Rockdale too, another fun but short version, right? Like, always just a great crowd song, just a dance party, and kept the energy on a high after that Hoffman.
Yeah, I just had up tempo mad dash to the finish into Big Modern.
Yeah, yeah, and we were like we were in like the second, third-ish row of the pit. We got a pretty good number, and they pulled us up to
Awesome.
the rail for Rockdale, which was pretty fun, and you could see the white boy dance moves on display. Like, I'm as
Oh, we saw.
yeah, about as rigid as it gets.
No, you and Sarah both looked really happy. You both looked like you were having the time of your life. It was right on the center of my living room TV, and me and Mary Grace couldn't have been happier to see you guys up there just living it up during one of the best Goose songs. So that was awesome to see on TV.
Yeah, and I didn't say it at the jump, but that was our first time doing the whole TED VIP thing and going up there, and it was lovely. It didn't feel like it was oversold or anything like that. It was
Good.
plenty of room to dance. So, and the
Yeah.
pit is tiny there, like 5 rows deep, literally. That's it.
Wow.
Tiny. I
I would
think
not
my
have guessed
living
that.
room table might be bigger than that pit.
Amazing.
No, but yeah, it was a good time. Two compact but fun, solid jams there.
Definitely.
But let's get into this Big Modern, because I think this another big highlight of the show here. Party vibes all the way, right?
Well, we become broken records quite often on this show, but Big Modern, easily the most consistent jammer in the catalog for me. I love the intense, rapid riffing from Rick early on, with Trevor doing these quick little bursting up and down runs, Peter like anchoring it with a repeating piano run, and Cotter's like insistent pushing of the pace. It gets into a space near the end that reminded me of like the dark cousin of the groove that they found in the Draconian last New Year's. I listened to that jam ad nauseum, but it
Mm-hmm.
had that same push and pull where every time you were going from the one to the four, or the one to the five, I don't know what progression they were in, but that swingy push and pull feel that they had just felt like it had a lot of momentum behind it every time they were moving it, and it was just really, really fun dance party, like you said. But I think it was all created by that giant gravity altering push and pull feel that they had established.
Yeah, I couldn't say it much better than myself, because they did latch on to that quick hitting, speedy riff and just let it ride and build the whole way for a solid 10-ish minutes, like almost a whole jam. And then that back and forth at the end is so cool. Like, it sounds so sick, and they only spent like 2 minutes on it, and it's still absolutely
Yeah.
like sick in the best way. But it served as a really cool transition into Give It Time at the end there too. But I absolutely love this. I think they read the room right when they latched onto that theme and just stuck with it, because it was just going over so well. And it's not always about exploring; it's about reading the room sometimes.
Well, and I mean, I'm having trouble because I think that maybe in the end, it doesn't have like the most entries on everyone's playlist. But I think that like when I'm determining my playlist here as we get closer to the end of the year, I think I have more interesting discussions to be had around big modern versions than I do anything else in the catalog. There's so many that like maybe they're on the fringe, maybe they ultimately don't make the cut, but there's definitely more to talk about than any other song that I can think of.
That's totally fair. Although I'm sure we'll get the
There's so
feedback
good.
that you guys, you should know there's 87 different cooldown songs and 85 different. set one closers that are better, whatever.
There's like 15 great big moderns this year, though. It's
Yeah,
it's nuts.
oh, totally, totally. And Big Modern Energy was great. Give it time. A set one closer is quickly making the case for me is like this might be the best way to close out a set one in terms of the crowd energy, because while it doesn't seem like it would be as cool as like a big jammer to close out a set dance party, just the energy and pure joy of like the crowd all singing along, and like that was the most saw the place jumping. You could literally feel the floor shaking in the pit, and the jumping and clapping to the outro was just pure magic. So I like the crowd energy when it comes to that kind of stuff and not like chomping. So
Can't argue with that. I mean, I wish we didn't have to deal with the chomping in the first place. That would be an even better world to exist in. But if we do have to live with the chomping, I mean, I do hear you loud and clear. It's not necessarily what I would go for as far as a set closer, but again, it's kind of like Silver Rising. I can't really argue with the results because every time I see either of these two songs played live, the way the crowd reacts to it cannot be denied. And
mhm.
I think that it helps that they give you the Cotter drum solo in it too, so you do get a little bit of the fun, rambunctious energy to go along with the joyful sing along that song mostly is. So it's diverse enough to work as a set closer. It just wouldn't be my first choice, but when you're closing down your fall tour and this is kind of the penultimate stop, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with. Let's go out on the highest vibes possible here into set break, and that's what they did.
Yeah, and to your like on paper, I would agree completely. Like I never would pick that if I was writing out a set list is like my dream. But when you're there, it's just like, oh my goodness, like this is just
Yeah,
the room is hypercharged right now with energy. Um,
I get that.
but speaking of energy, dude, anything else on set one? Because we have a lot of energy to talk about in set two.
No, we got too much to talk about in set two. Let's get into it.
Oh my goodness, let's just no chill during the set two at all. We open up with the Into the Mist of the Year, easily my highlight of the show. I know you said Secrets is your highlight, but I'm hoping this is second for you.
Oh, easily. I could not be more excited about getting some kind of change in Seekers. Like it's made my 2025. Rick, Peter, Trevor, Cotter, thank all of you so much for that Seekers. Anyways, on to this miss. Definitely the second biggest highlight.
Oh my
It
goodness.
starts off on that full on disco land claps and all. Peter giving us solid road space progression to build off of. Trevor just was super tight, funky lines. Rick was almost some don't stop till you get enough style guitar riffing going on. And after a while, they descend into like minor, more laid back, spacey period where they slow down just a little more. Maybe some Don't Leave Me This Way teases in that part. Rick brings in some major key riffs and they all kind of build back up together into dance party vibes once again now with Rick all of the digital saucy reverb tone, and they bring this back up to a huge peak as this becomes what I would guess is the best version since at least the Cap last year. That's my synopsis on that amazing mint.
There is no doubt in my mind this is the best version since the Cap last year, and arguably, depending on your taste, could go toe to toe with that. I still put the Cap Mist ahead of this one for just like I've listened to it more, I guess. But I'm not going to argue with
Yeah.
anyone who says that this is their favorite version of Mist now, because
Yeah.
holy crap, I thought this was another like Goose light. Goose kind of jam in a lot of ways, because it didn't quite hit like the full on like Blade club sound, but it kept that clap track and the really funky groove going all around. And yeah, to your point, Peter was shining early on the roads, dude. The smooth key shots shine through the whole way as like this funky rhythmic anchor. And then Trevor took charge after that, leading the way into a little quiet back and forth, like you said, to lead the jam into this bridge to the next jammy dance party section. And it was a little trippy, cool, like looping quiet space that lets you breathe for a second. And even in near silence, you can pick out just incredible stuff that these guys are doing and finding different ways for everyone in the band to shine. But the final section is really, really where I think people are just going to latch onto this thing, because it's got a super catchy hook. Rick spinning that wheel of fortune of effects again. Like you said, bright, airy to warbling to digital fuzz to everything. And The way they latch onto themes and let them breathe this tour, especially, but using those subtle changes in tone and stuff was just really impressive. And I think this was an encapsulation of that in all the ways, hitting that glorious Goose Peak by the end. And along with Give It Time, I think this was by far the most I saw the venue moving, with a really slick transition into You Spin Me Round, which, to your point, I really thought was going to be Don't Leave Me This Way the whole way. But this is great slotting for this too.
Yeah, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like with the teases, I'm hearing what I want to hear sometimes, but I'll go back and listen to this obviously endlessly. It's not going to stop through the end of the year because this is a playlist song for sure for me. But I definitely was hearing both of the Michael Jackson riffs and the Don't Leave Me This Way teases in that. And I think it's also interesting as the Goose becomes more and more like established a part of the Goose repertoire. What qualifies as Goose? What's Goose adjacent? What's Goose light or Goose diet Goose? I think is what you called it, which I really like that term. Because it's interesting, like some of this stuff, like this one in particular for me reads way more disco. It had more of like the Goose Miss vibes that we had last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see like the argument that's a little bit more on the fence or a little bit pushing more in that direction. And some of that's like hard to like break out into how much it fits into one category or the other. So that'll be interesting debates as that all continues. But there's no debating where You Spin Me Round lands, because that is absolutely always a very fun major key electronic dance party of its own.
Yeah, this was really where the Goons thrived overall. Like it was a build into like full on Goons party with the mist, hit it at the end, and then just rode that through spinning around. Cotter was literally playing the same rhythm that he was playing at the end of the mist jam the whole way through spinning around, which was really cool. It was just almost like an extension of the jam and absolutely perfect slotting. Like I know people have been like, "Oh, I don't really love this as a closer or set 2 or as an encore or whatever," but this is as good as it gets when it comes to slotting. Coming out of a big jam like that into the mist, I thought this was just perfection.
Well, this set too is perfection. I have no issues with this entire show. I think the whole thing is outstanding start to finish, and I think it's definitely top 5 shows of 2025 for me. I mean, it's going to be up there with, probably behind MSG. Everything's behind MSG, and maybe behind one or two from the February run. But other than that, like this show kind of stands on its own. So, especially when you're looking at set 2, I agree with you 100%. I make no changes to this set. I take it exactly as it comes.
Yeah. I love it when they do that with a perfectly slotted cover like that to get like in a big venue like the Man too, where you drew in some like Goose Curious type people and stuff like that. I thought that was a really, really savvy move to continue the fun of Into the Mist with something that people would be familiar with all around.
Well, and also give them something positive because you're about to take them to hell again here in the next one. So, you gotta
Oh my
cushion the
gosh.
blow of, hey guys, our satanic cult shows up now.
Dude, Modivon was a huge surprise because I thought they were going to have to cool down after like literally lighting the place on fire with dance moves. I mean, the man's got a lot of wood in there, man, and people were cutting rugs the whole way. Like, surprised it didn't cause any fires.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised as well. But then Rick was like, "Watch this! I'm gonna bite a head of a bat off right now."
Yeah, I really thought that this was going to be like in the encore or on this night or maybe the closer for the set, but they just kept the momentum rolling in a totally different direction. And this one really reminded me a lot of the Modivon from Milwaukee. In a lot of ways, they were like semi close thematically, and the band leaned into like this really, once again, spooky season, trippy, creepy, lost in space soundscape for a while of shrill chirps and uneasy, dissonant guitar. And then Rick just out of the blue introduces this menacing lick to pull the band out of that soundscape, and it's a falling elevator straight to the pits of hell the rest of the way. Like, I don't really have many words to describe it, but some of the things I really enjoyed were Trevor and Peter circling around that riff with these cool, bubbling but disturbing textures, like a boiling cauldron of witch's brew or something. And then the tone that Peter was like texturing things with in the background was some of the coolest shit ever, with this like warbling, I don't even know what it is, sound on his guitar. Like, again, I'm terrible with guitar effects, but it was unreal. It was like so uneasy in the room, especially. You could feel it in your chest. And Cotter is apparently a power metal drummer. Like I had never seen anything quite like that. For several minutes, he was literally in a metal band, and the mind meld was
Yeah.
on full display for that outro. Dark, sick, let's go to hell jam, head banging all the way through. I'm pretty sure there was at least 19 people drawing pentagrams in the crowd after that.
Yeah, I mean, this one definitely takes a lot of its cues from the February run. It starts off with all kinds of angular, discordant sounds from literally everyone in the band. And this is where I sometimes get mad even at myself as far as like ranking jams, because it's a little bit shorter than the Milwaukee Madhavan, but it's definitely its angry cousin. And sometimes I feel like if they can get to the point and achieve that many more new sounds and textures in a shorter amount of time, like why should that jam be ranked lower than one that takes 5 minutes longer to make the same point or get to the same highs? And I think that sometimes in jam culture, especially when we get to like ranking or opinions about what's better, I think sometimes that can kind of muck things up and get in the way, because I think this accomplishes so much in its runtime, and it moves into sort of like Aladdin adjacent dark space in large parts to the swaying feel from Tweaks' bass lines, which are just absolutely insane. And it ramps up into an even darker progression than anything I heard in February, thanks in large part to some inspired lines from Rick as he effortlessly lifts this jam further and further into the abyss. And while it's shorter and maybe covering just ever so less bit of a range of ground, this is so much more aggressive and bordering on the point of being thrash metal that I think it deserves everyone attention, because out of all the Dark Goose that I've heard this year, and I've heard more Dark Goose this year than I've heard in any year of my life, I think that this one does something that a lot of the other ones does. It sounded like a King Gizzard song at some points. Like, I mean, insane.
Yeah, they were leaning on all of Trevor's metal knowledge, being a metalhead growing up, because this reminded me of a lot of like the thrash metal I grew up loving as a teenager. It was just absolutely sick, and I think if they had more time in this set, they would have let it go for an even longer run. But the amount of ground they covered, to your point, is terrific, and I'm curious when it comes to Jam of the Year and all that, where it's going to land. Do I think it got to the heights of like, let's say, the Alpharetta Madhavan for my taste? Maybe not. It's different. It's just so different. It's hard. It's hard to.
It's going to be on the playlist. Now, do I know where it's going to be? Is it going to be like top 10 or top 20 or something like that? I don't know. Maybe not, but it's so unique that I feel like it deserves a place somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to be on there. It's just a matter of preference for people, because it really does remind me a lot of that Milwaukee one, and it's only a couple minutes shorter, and to your point, much angrier.
I think this is the heaviest I've heard Goose. This is the first time that I've heard them sound like, you know, like King Gizzard, Murder of the Universe type stuff, where it like actually does like qualify as like borderline metal and not just like one section like the angry part of Big Modern.
Yeah, totally fair. And coming out of that anger, surprise, we're going to Thatch.
Like, what the hell? This set, man.
Right out of it.
Insanity.
And listen, like, Thatch is an awesome song, regardless if it has a jam or not. And with the way that this set list was constructed, I thought that while people might be sad they didn't get a big banger Thatch jam out of this thing, this was absolutely perfect slotting here to sacrifice a jam to get the emotional ride we got to end this set, in my opinion.
I mean, this is a fucking rock show at this point. I mean, coming out of that Madhavan jam and then getting my favorite guitar riff ever, maybe, to go right out of that. I mean, I wish I was there. I really do wish I was there, because I mean, this is electric stuff, man.
It was unreal. You were waiting for the cooldown. It just never came. Elmeg,
Good.
I guess, after this was as close as it gets. And even this was a high energy version of Elmeg, right? But not to discount this Thatch, but it was a fun time. They let the solo go for a little bit, and it had the sauce, but they were paving the way to end this set on a huge Elmeg the Wise, and one of the standout versions we've ever gotten of the song.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have any like specific notes here breaking it down. it was different than other Elmigs, and I think a lot of that is just by virtue of the fact that we usually have been seeing it with Autumn Crossing, and this tour was interesting in that it started with a Traveler Sans Elmig, and we get an Elmig Sans Travelers to close the tour. So there was kind of a bit of poetry as far as how they chose to do that, and props to Goose for recognizing that. But from what I remember of my 2 listens here, because I didn't jot down anything specific, I thought this Elmig was a little bit more patient and contemplative than Elmig typically has been, because it seems like when they do Autumn Crossing and they play them both together, it's kind of just like riding the lightning through both songs
Mm-hmm.
at least the jam portions, whereas this one had time to play with the atmosphere and to kind of more organically let the jam grow and evolve rather than kind of just trying to speed burst through both songs, kind of linking them with a theme. There was no pressure to link the jams, and so that led to some new territory, which I'm maybe we should keep them separated for a little bit longer now. I mean, I love getting Autumn Crossing live, but maybe some more interesting stuff comes out of it if we, play these songs individually.
I think just being able to keep the fan base on their toes, whether
Yeah.
we're gonna get the run or not, is huge. And yeah, first time played independently since the cap in 2023 is just time flies, man. But I agree with you in a lot of ways that there was more wiggle room to lean into the emotional playing that Rick likes to do a little bit on Elmeg. But this was don't be mistaken, this was high energy the whole way through. It was Cotter really taking this over the top, and I'm not sure that we ever could have gotten an Elmeg like this before Cotter joined the band, with these huge splashy cymbal and tom shots mixed with these crazy snare rolls and ride cymbal quick taps to like really propel the journey and emotional beats of this jam to like 11 out of 10.
Oh, for sure. And I did not mean to like discount, like this has a long extended peak in it. I just meant like very much initially starting out, it was not as much of a rush to get from A to B as it
Yeah, yeah.
typically would be when they're running through Autumn Crossing. I just thought that was neat. And I maybe would want to see a couple more standalone versions of both of those songs just to kind of see what happens with them.
Yeah, for sure. But they were clearly enjoying Elmeg so much. I don't think this was in the plans, but they wrote it long, and the man has a pretty strict curfew just being around so much residential. So they hopped off stage and they came back and they did an audible from Empress that was originally on the set list and played Salt, which again, glad they stuck with an original there. Salt always rips. I know people are complaining about it being played so much, but it's a high energy, great way to exit a show. Like I got no complaints there.
Yeah, no, I mean, we said it earlier in the show. I think that they've been doing it because it works. I mean, it's similar to like Don't Do It as far as, covers. If that's what you're going to do, it works. Turn on Your Love Light works. If you need to do a 7 minute or less song and you need to get off stage, these are high energy songs that everyone's going to have a fun time at. And to your earlier point, which I am 100% on your side, I'd way rather hear an original than a cover if we're, getting to choose. So yeah, give me the Salt. I mean, I like those covers, but I'd rather hear the original too.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously exceptions. Like there's big covers that they do that are fan
Yeah.
favorites, but you know, giving the crowd
If they'd
something
wanted to end with
original.
a Monster, I might
Oh
have been
my
into
god,
it.
dude, they were sound checking a Monster before the show.
I
That
know.
would have been
So
a
if they
great
wanted to
call.
encore that, that would have been chef's kiss to me. But
Oh, brother.
it's still, I don't know, fourth or fifth best show of the entire year, maybe third. It's in that range. So I mean, zero complaints with this show. It was perfection.
Yeah, my mind was blown. That pit, the man, is something special too because it's so small. The stage is super low, and the
Love
bandstand's a
that.
little further back. I feel like I'm never that close, so I don't really know, but it feels like they stand further
Yeah.
back to where you can actually appreciate the lights a little more than I would think you normally could up there. So it was fun. I tried to be present and not on my phone a lot, but I took a couple pictures and I was like, wow, I can see all the lights. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Amazing.
But yeah,
Love that for you, buddy.
awesome times at the Man. And the band wasn't done there because they decided to book Rise Festival the day after blowing the doors off the Man. Took a plane out to Las Vegas and went to the Rise Festival in the deserts close by. We couldn't listen to this show. There was no stream or anything, but just wanted to run through real quick. Looked like they got a Silver Rising opener, then Hunger Sight, creatures, Slow Ready, and Drip Field to close it out. No John Mayer guest spot, but it looked like a really cool light rig and a really cool setting with all the lanterns going up in the sky and all that. Like, that looked insane from the pictures.
Yeah, I've never been to a lantern festival, but looked pretty neat.
Yeah, we heard some horror stories too early on in the festival about like food running out and it, like being Firefest 2.0. It seems like that got sorted out quick
Okay.
and a little exaggerated, but by the time Goose was there on the final night, it seems like everything was all good.
Hope everyone was all well.
Yeah, but that's the final leg of the fall tour here. We got a few shows left in the year, but I wanted to get your thoughts, like high level, on this fall tour, Mike. If you want to run through them real quick, just overall thoughts from Burlington through the Man, let's say.
Yeah, so I thought this fall tour was interesting. It had some highs and some lows, and I thought it was a good mix, though, of that. I felt like there were a lot of shows that were really good examples of what interesting set listing and really good flow can be like in terms of a live show for them. But I just felt like there were also some really good examples of shows that were more just directly focused on, here's 4 or 5 really great examples of the best we can do with improv. And then some were a little bit of both, where it may have had one set that flowed really well and one set that had really good jams. So I feel like there was a lot of variety as far as types of shows and what made different shows good in different ways. And ultimately, I feel like if you were lucky enough to be able to attend, any 2-show run or back-to-back shows, you were probably going to get at least a little bit of what you were looking for, no matter what type of fan you are and what you're hoping to get out of a concert from Goose. And so overall, I felt like there was a good balance and a lot of risk taking on Goose's part. And I hope that continues as the year wraps up.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit the other day. There's been a lot of doom and gloom online about this last leg of the tour because of the uneven sets and stuff like that. But I think it's a little overstated, right? Like, maybe there's a little bit of unevenness, but from that Burlington through Louisville run, I thought that the set listing, like, all around was super top notch there. Then a little bit of unevenness might have started coming up from set to set in Alpharetta, and then you still got a banger set too there, like on par with as good as this set two from Philly in my mind. And then Charlotte was fantastic top to bottom flow wise. And then this past week we talked about it a little bit, but Philly got them right back on track. So I guess all I would say is it's easy to be a prisoner of the moment and be let down or something like that, but they're in a great place. I'm really loving what we're getting from 2025 Goose. A lot of these jams might not be the 25-minute banger that everyone seems to like fantasize about when they go to a show, when they were looking for the jams, but the compact jamming has been really good. And while you might not be getting 2 unique beats in a jam, you're still getting one really cool unique beat, or like 1.5. And there's a lot to appreciate in my mind.
Well, and I mean, I think perspective is everything. And you tell me all the time that, we all could use a little bit more of, being grateful for what we get. And I mean, if you feel like you're eating a shit sandwich, I'm never going to tell you to be happy about it. But I really don't feel like the overstatements that happen online are accurate at all. And I mean, like, I can only speak for personal experience, but I've been to, I think, like 11 Goose shows this year. And even though I openly complained that I thought that the set 1 in Alpharetta was a bit uneven of a flow, it's my favorite show I've been to this year because of that Madhavan in set 2. So, like, I mean, even if you have like issues with a show, like, your perspective matters a lot. And like, I'm just choosing to be grateful for, like, how the hell did I get that crazy jam in set 2? So, like, even the shows you may not be necessarily as high on, there's something great happening. Goose is trying something new at that show, and they're constantly trying new stuff right now. So I think we should just applaud them that they're taking risks, and not all of it's always going to work out perfectly for your taste or everyone's taste. It's hard to please everyone out there. We're all going to shows looking for different things, but I think they're doing a great job of mixing it up. And as long as they keep doing that, they're going to keep delivering outstanding moments for us.
Couldn't say it better myself, buddy. And one last thing is, I mean, they also just casually dropped 2 albums this year and are probably attracting a lot of new fans too, right? So, like, they want to play a bunch of songs for those new fans to hear and bring them on slowly, I would think. But we'll see where things go. Goosemas is going to be hot at the end of the year. Hopefully we get the theme here soon, and we got Halloween coming up. So there's still a lot to be excited about, and we'll hopefully be back with some fun topics in the meantime. I know we want to talk about Halloween a little bit, preview a little Goosemas. maybe talk about geek out a little bit about some other topics. We'll see. Life's tough with our full-time jobs, but we'll be back.
We'll get you
before
some
know it.
content.
Yeah, we always
Absolutely.
try. We always try at the very least. So just wanted to say thank y'all for listening and putting up with us for an hour and change here. Oh my gosh, we went long, but there was a lot to get to. So
Yeah.
hope you enjoyed the episode and take care out there.
Have a great week, y'all.